folks. This is Dave. I'm Ashley of Sugar Lime Blue. You know us from the Sugar Lime Blue Sunday shout out. This is the chat portion. Thank you for tuning in, for subscribing to our channel.
Yeah.
For hanging out with us. We're gonna
taking a little deeper dive into the songs and what we perform, and maybe try posting it a little bit ahead of time so you guys can get hyped for the song that's coming up.
Yeah. So we're gonna try it. You if you've been with us any amount of time, you know we're constantly trying to shift things around to make it more convenient for you guys, to make it more jazzy for you, to jazz everybody up.
Yeah. Reach more people and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So this week we took on a song off of our first album that I've always enjoyed playing. I think it was one of the very first songs we wrote together for this project. The song's called Talkin to Yourself. It was on our very first album, which was all called
Far From the Tree.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful artwork, which I still adore on that one too.
I still remember like playing around with this song and like the
its infancy
and being like, hey, like it was I was getting into a little bit of Scotty Moore, who was the guitar player for Elvis, and his rockabilly flavor of playing, and this was like a lick that I came up in tribute to that style, but I put much more of a blues spin, swamp type of feel on it instead, instead of a rockabilly, it has more of a swamp vibe, I think.
You have such an in-depth thought behind the music. I feel like I approach him like, yeah, that sounds good, or yeah, that feels good. And you're like, I was studying this particular composer, and then I decided I was going to mix it up with some of this. It's so fun to listen to you.
Well, it's funny because it's not like... there's certain songs that I write and I'm like, yeah, I want to write a song like the Rolling Stones, and then like we write the song and I listen back and I'm like,
this is nothing.
That doesn't sound crap like the Rolling Stones. I like it, I like what came out, but by the time we get done with it, we're like, because I think what happens is we gravitate towards our own writing style. We're like, I do the Scotty Moore type of maneuvers, but then I'm like, oh, you know what? I like this, or this is more comfortable, or I like the way it happens when I do this, or if I bend real slow right here. And then I'm like, oh, this sounds kind of, swampy or whatever. Yeah. And I kind of move it more in that direction. And then it becomes a whole completely different thing.
That's how art is, though. You were inspired. And I've always said that art inspires art. So you were inspired by somebody else's artistry to create your own art. I think it's a beautiful thing, and the thing is, it's in your voicing.
It is.
It's your voice that comes
weird,
through
and
that.
It's weird listening back to yourself because you can hear, you can still hear some of these motivating factors that other people may or may not hear, and a lot of times I think they definitely don't hear them because they'll say, "Oh, this sounds like so and so," or "This sounds like that," or "This sounds like this," and it couldn't be like. A lot of times they'll name artists that I've never listened to, or somebody that I've listened to just a few times, or artists that I don't think we sound like at all. So I think that everybody wants to hear something familiar, right? And also we're putting our own thoughts of what it sounds like onto it, even though it really doesn't sound. It's like a stew, really.
It really is.
Like if you get good enough in the infancy stages, maybe you do sound like your favorite guitar player, because that's all you ever study and that's all you ever play, and you want to sound like him, so that's what you go after, But to me, it's more like a stew now. It's like my guitar playing is a mixture of all the people that I listen
your
to,
inspiration.
And it's like even if I think for a second, I want to sound like B.B. King in this passage, I'm gonna have a way different approach because of all this other stuff that I've garnered.
You're still going to sound like Dave.
Right.
Because you don't want to be B.B. King. You want to be
exactly.
Dave.
But in my mind, okay.
Playing with that inspiration.
B.B. King, maybe I want to play sharp notes, not sharp as in pitch, but notes that cut.
Clear,
Space, lots of space, a very specific vibrato I have in my mind, and spacing is specifically, and when I play that, my note selection and phrasing and all this other stuff is still mine, and taste and tone and approach and pick attack, so it's going to be very specific to me, even though when I think in my mind, I want to sound like this person, or I want to play a lick like B.B. King, it's still going to come out very different than BB
Do you
King.
feel like part of the reason that you approach like that is because you come at it with like unintentional producer's hat too, because you're thinking of the production of the song?
I think it took me a long time to get to the production hat in my playing, which I think anybody that produces music or anybody that studies how music sounds in an ensemble is going to have maybe a more, I'm not going to say better, but maybe a more developed ear sense of what they should be playing.
Okay.
Because you start to realize, like, oh, if I'm, like, chugging away down here on low strings and the bass player's playing, you know, mid passages, this is going to conflict. If I'm, like, noodling while the vocalist is singing, that's going to clash, you know? If I'm playing open chords and there's an acoustic guitar player playing open chords or a piano player playing in the middle of his keyboard, they're just gonna, they might mesh together. And now sometimes I want to mesh,
right?
You know, and then other times I want to play a complementary part, right? Know? So I think a lot of that, you know, it goes into play. And I do think that listening to music and producing music is the best way to become a better musician.
Helps develop your ear.
Yeah.
So like
and playing with great musicians also.
So onto like the body of this particular song lyrically, do you ever tell yourself a story about this song?
I mean, I just live this song most of the time, honestly, because like even though I'm not one to much talk.
Tell me what you mean.
Even though I'm not one to much, like, this is probably one of our more like flippant songs about, like, you know what, I ain't got time for you or whatever. In my brain anyway, it's like, yeah, I call it subtweeting, even though, like, it's like, so basically somebody is saying something, and that's the tweet. Okay. And then my brain is, like, subtweeting them without them knowing about it. Like, it's like, they say something, my brain's like, but, or, yeah, right, or you're an idiot.
You're being snarky in your head.
Yeah, like... So, do I talk to myself a lot? Yes, you know.
But it's internal dialogue.
It's internal dialogue. Okay. Yeah, I mean, okay. I'm not that. I do have a measure of rudeness, but not that much rude.
What about aloud though? Do you find yourself? That's really having internal dialogue where it could be an external dialogue where you're conversing with someone. What about to yourself, at yourself?
Well, I think that like this song, that in particular, what you're asking, no, but I think of the song in two different ways. One, in the context of which I just said, where I'm like talking to myself. I am the one talking to myself, you know?
All right.
And the second one, I am the one talking to myself too, but in a different way. It's like, it's kind of reminds me of all those people that I call them ask holes. Because
I've heard you say that.
They ask a question or they want your advice and then they don't follow it. And it's not that it wasn't good advice, you know, and it's not like everybody's follow every piece of advice I give.
Right.
Absolutely not. Like, I'll give bad advice, I'm sure. But if you're asking me because you think I'm a professional or because you think I have something to give, but you're just asking to hear my opinion and then do what, like, if you're just asking for verification to do your way, then that is what I consider an ask hole. Because it's like, no, like, you never do anybody else's advice. You just want confirmation for your own advice. And it's like, and then what happens is, like, 9 times out of 10, those people make bad choices or fall in a pit or do something bad, and then they want you to bail them out, sometimes literally. You know, not that this is about anybody in particular, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, for 100% sure that we all know 1 or 2 of those people in our lives that ask for your opinion, don't follow it, fall on their face, and then they're like, oh, bad things always happen, you know?
Right. So it's like, for me, I take a totally different approach to the song. I'm not normally the one talking to myself. When I think of this song, I'm asking the question. And for me, the spark of inspiration for the lyrics was, are you talking to me? Not just you, but our daughter when she was younger, because this is one of our first songs, you know, and people from the other room, it's like, and I think it's because of my brain mostly, have very loud thoughts. And for someone to come in with external sound at me, I have to stop my internal dialogue. I have to shut that down. And that takes a minute to shut down And then to address the other person, it's like, were you talking to me? Were you talking to me? Can you make your words again? Or what? Even though my brain might already be processing what they were saying and it'll come around to it, I'll say what fairly often, or and I find myself going, are you even talking to me? Because people will be in the other room saying something and it's like, does this even pertain to me? Do I need to shut down my brain so that I can listen to what they're saying? And why aren't they in the same room with me? You know, it gives me a bit of frustration because I'm like, what are you even doing in there? If you're talking to me, come talk to me. And I think I've said that. And we're in a relatively small house. We can talk to each other from the other room, but it can be a source of frustration when my brain is really loud. And also, I remember when we first wrote this song, you had a laugh, and that always stuck with me because you had the visual image, like as we were completing the lyrics together, of somebody on Bluetooth, because this is when Bluetooth was kind of first becoming out into the public, and people had the earpieces in, and that was the new bit. Yeah. Was the people would just be around the store talking
on their phone.
On the phone, and especially I worked in retail at the time, and you would be trying to help somebody and they would get mad at you because you were interrupting their conversation, whereas you thought that they were perhaps conversing with you so you could give them help. No. So now it's become a little bit more commonplace, but this is, back when that was expensive technology and not everybody had it. But that always stuck with me, that somebody was talking on their phone and perhaps getting ticked at you because you were trying to help them. And it's like, that's completely unfair also.
It's amazing.
Communication is important, I think, is the main idea of the whole thing. Communication is vitally important.
And you put it on yourself and I make it snarky. The story of our relationship. So this week, let's try something different. Let's hear how everybody relates to this song. Do you relate to the song? Do you not relate to the song? Tell us how you relate to the song, your experiences with talking to yourself or not talking to yourself. And what we'll do is we'll play our studio cut. Since you haven't heard the shout out yet, we'll play our studio cut or link to it at the end here. And you can listen to our studio cut and let us know, and then join us tomorrow for the Sunday shout out and comment again.
Yeah, let us know if you like this format, doing the shout out a little, or doing the chat.
What we're trying to do is open the highways a little bit so that things don't get so congested and we can have a more open dialogue in the chat section.
Also, our chosen platform doesn't seem to like us releasing 2 videos at one time, and it wants to top post one, and that can make it kind of hard for some people to find the actual shout out.
Always.
So we want to make it better for ease of use for you guys and for you to be able to engage with the content that you want to engage with.
And if you want it the other way around, you can always save this video and listen to it later.
Yeah.
See you next week.
See you
see you tomorrow for the shout out.
See you now. Rewind.